Tim Hortons open, and I went through the drive-thru. All I wanted was a coffee, and I get up to the drive-thru, and I wasn't sure if it was open. And then a voice started talking to me, and I was like, "You're here!"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yes. Can I take your order?" I was like, "No, I'm just so happy you're here. Thank you."
Yes.
So here it is.
Gotta love it.
Got the coffee.
We refrained from wearing the full-on space suits.
So we're maintaining our distance,
Correct.
and we're just thankful to have the space to be able to come on tonight and be able to talk about some real stuff, because it's a crazy time.
Amen.
Right now.
Amen. Well, we just want to welcome you guys to our first ever Facebook Live, Buffalo FCA. We are entering into the digital world. This is kind of crazy. So bear with us. We're super nervous, but we're excited to be with you. And I can't wait for you guys to hear from Nia.
Tonight to talk to our coaches and athletes, and what it looks like right now, and what maybe you're processing, and maybe grieving, and just wondering, what is there for me now? What's next?
Amen. Well, we can't wait to hear from you, Nia. If you guys don't know, I'm Jake Hannon with FCA, and this is Nia Bates.
Hi, everybody.
She's a rock star, and she is on the FCA board, and does tons of stuff for FCA, and has an amazing story, and married to Jeremy. I'll let you talk. I'll let you tell us about yourself. But we just want to welcome you guys, and we're going to get to Nia's story in a minute, but maybe you could just take a moment and share a little bit about yourself, family, what do you do?
Sure. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I actually came up to Buffalo. I accepted a full scholarship to play basketball at Canisius College. That's what brought me up to Buffalo, and I ended up meeting Jeremy. You know, I had all these plans to go to Italy to teach English, all this stuff, and then I ended up meeting Jeremy, my husband, my senior year, and he proposed, and now we have a family. We live and work in Buffalo. I've been here ever since. I've been involved in FCA in a number of ways over the years. My background is I was a health and phys ed teacher, so I had the great privilege of teaching elementary phys ed for about 9 years. And then part of my story is my ankle and having to resign from that, and it's amazing the different places that God takes you that I never was intending on being, or I certainly didn't plan, but I was just so thankful that God's plan and His will for my life is always better than what I had planned. And so now we have 2 little kids, Lena, hi honey, if you're watching, if you should probably get to bed soon, and Nigel, who's 3. And so I'm home primarily with them, and we actually started homeschooling this year, which has been a crazy ride.
Good timing.
Good time. Hey, I was ahead of the curve. Okay. No, it's so that was interesting where God brought us there, and we build modular homes here in Western New York. So doing that, and it's always just changing, right? There's always new adventures that I find us on, but just open to, okay, God, what do you have for me now in this season, and go from there.
Very cool. So what's a modular home?
That's a good question.
Yes.
That's the number one question.
So
we always say it looks like a regular stick-built home. It's a wood frame construction house. But the home is primarily built inside a factory, so it's out of the elements, out of the snow, because we're in Buffalo, the rain, all the yucky stuff, the cold, and so most of the home is built in a factory off-site, and then it's shipped up in modules, and we're a turnkey provider, so we take it from foundation, putting, digging the raw land, putting the foundation in, and then we put the modules. So a lot of people want to say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch, and that would come in sections. You put it together, then we finish it. Most people want porches and garages, so it's like a regular house. It's just a really cool process, a little quicker, save some money, more planet friendly, all that good stuff. So Buffalo Modular Homes, there it is.
Are people allowed to purchase homes in the midst of what's going on?
It's a great question. So it's a little bit, we kind of find out sometimes hour by hour the changes that are going on. So as a small business owner, you're always trying to, you want to be able to make payroll, pay your employees. Also, we work with an amazing contractor, so there's a lot of contractors in our business. And so this is a tough time for them as well. So we're trying to continue the homes that we were close to, being done with. We want to get these people in their homes, but it's a little bit tied up if you can't get, if towns or offices aren't operating to be able to get the permit maybe you need to get the loan to close and that sort of stuff. So on that end, it's slowed. And then our factories actually in Pennsylvania, they were mandated to shut down for right now. So every day we're just relying on the Lord and trusting. And it's a little bit of the unknown, but we're still working away at home, from home primarily.
Yeah,
so.
Very cool. Well, thanks for being with us and your
Thanks for having
family.
me.
You guys live in
The Village of Williamsville.
cool.
Yeah.
Homeschooling, crushing it.
I don't know about that, but we're doing it. There's a learning process there too.
Cool. So maybe just real quick, talk a little bit about FCA and how you got here. You're such a valuable member of our board and our team. We love you and Jeremy so much. But you're also working at UB as an ambassador for FCA and just helping out our UB huddle there. And what's your FCA history and why are you doing this?
Yeah, it's a great question. For those of you who aren't familiar with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, maybe you are, but if you're not, here's the cool logo here. Stands for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And my involvement started actually in high school. So my dad just completed last year his 50th year of coaching football in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you're familiar with Pittsburgh and the football there, it's serious. So he was also a high school math teacher. So I was an athlete in our school and we had these club times. So I think it was once a week, you had this time at the end of the day to go to a club. And so we started an FCA huddle, we called it the huddle, at our high school. And that was amazing. It was so cool just to see. My dad is he's been such an influence, both of my parents have, but my dad has been a coach and he was a teacher, so he had a lot of influence on my life, being an athlete. And just the way that he would go into those FCA meetings, the care that he had, the integrity that he had, that he was he still is a strong man. He looks like the Godfather, has a really deep voice. And his faith, though, is just what really impacted a lot of people. That he's strong, he's tough, he loved football, hard-nosed, gritty, but he is going to be praying with you. He's going to be sitting down like, hey, talk to me. What can I do to help you? If guys needed clothes, Mom and Dad, no. So his influence was great. So is everything okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're live.
Awesome.
Still live.
So yeah, his influence on me with the FCA there and just seeing the impact that he had on so many young men and female athletes was very inspiring. So that lit the fire in me to want to continue that. And then I went to Canisius and I was really surprised when I got there that we didn't have an FCA on campus. And then when things happened in my career, when it really started to get difficult for me, I really missed that support group, trying to find other believers, other athletes dealing with unique things. And other people who aren't athletes on campus, they're going through stuff which could be different. And when you're an athlete, like waking up at 4 a.m. to go to practice and what you have to sacrifice and the discipline you have to have. It's just refreshing. It's nice, right? To be able to talk to someone else that knows a little bit, even if you don't play the same sport, knows what you're going through.
Sure.
And so I ended up, we didn't have one, so I decided to start one at Canisius. So we started one at Canisius, and then unfortunately I didn't do a great job of passing the baton to someone else when I was leaving. So that's actually one of my goals here in the future. Is I'd love to see an FCA back at Canisius, back at Niagara, really at all the universities and colleges in Buffalo, to have that. And really it'd be great if it could be at our high schools. And so the UB program, if there's any of my UB huddle athletes on here, hi guys, they are phenomenal.
You gotta go horns up, right?
Was that? Yes,
Horns up.
exactly. Even though I'm from Canisius, they let me join them. But they just, every time I go, we meet every Monday night, and now we had our first Zoom meeting, which was really cool. But they never cease to amaze me. Just their faith and their willingness to want to, they could be doing anything else, and they decide to meet, and we get a large group, about 20 athletes, I'd say, consistently. And so I've been blessed to be a part of that group, and that they let me come, this old washed up athlete mom. So that's where we are, and just being a part of UB, and would love to see it, more huddles pop up. And I'm hoping that through this challenging time that we'll see that there's such a need for more huddles, and hopefully we can support coaches and athletes to get those started.
Totally. With the virus, we're doing everything digitally as a ministry. So we utilize Zoom a lot right now, and Google Hangouts. But if anyone is interested in getting involved in FCA, you can still do that right now. We'll post a link for this later, but we have a virtual website. It's www.fca.org/virtual. And I know you guys did a Zoom meeting, right? The UB Huddle did a Zoom meeting this week. But it's so cool. So maybe just talk for 60 seconds. What is a huddle? You talked about getting FCA on campuses. I mean, how is that a powerful thing? What is a huddle, and what does that do for a campus, for the athletes of a campus?
It's a good question. We get asked this a lot. I try to break it down. Basically, it's a faith-based support group in a nutshell. We do devotionals. Actually, FCA is great. They put out devotionals. They're free, right online. They have hard copies, but they're online now. And so we walk through a devotional. There's a scripture, and then there's a story, something that we read together, and then there's questions. So it provides consistency when we meet to walk through these things, but also it's, what are you going through? What's going on? Tell me about your week. How are exams going? What's going on with your season? And so we have an opportunity for athletes to share and have a safe space to share. And at the end, really spend time praying with one another and supporting and encouraging one another. So like I was saying before, we could be playing different sports, but we're united under that common thread of our love for sport and our love for Jesus. And we really want to bring together, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Protestant, whatever denomination, that we're united through our faith, and that we can really use that platform to reach other people, to help encourage, and it provides so much more in depth, and I'd say purpose for what we're doing, because we love sports. Sports are such a big part of, especially Buffalo, Western New York. They're so big here, and isn't it wonderful to have a greater purpose for coaching, for playing, that it's not just about the X's and O's, but it's about something greater.
Totally. And these athletes are high-profile athletes. A lot of them are in the spotlight on campus. They have a platform, they have influence, and what an opportunity for a ministry to come alongside of them. And their life is no joke. I mean, you're a Division I basketball player. I was a Division I hockey player. I mean, you're up at 5:30 or 6, and you're worried about how many calories you're taking in and what foods you're eating, and are you stretching in the morning? Are you drinking enough water? And then you have 8 classes you have to go to, and homework and exams and quizzes, and on top of that, you're playing an extremely high-level sport, right? I mean, your games are on TV, and you're in the newspaper, and there's a lot going on as an 18-year-old to just come out of high school and to to enter into that world. It's a lot to have on your shoulders. So, yeah,
That's so true.
crazy. So we love all you UB Huddle people out there. If you guys are watching, and if you're a college athlete that's watching this and you want to get involved or you want to start FCA on your campus, please let us know, and I'll hook you up with Nia because she's the bomb and she'll get that figured out for you.
Well, we'd love to just help support you. That's really what we're here for, is just to help support, whether you're in high school, middle school, whether you're a club team or university, college. We just want to help to equip you and empower you to do it with your team. So that's what we're here for.
Amen. Well, let's get into the heart of this. We're here to hear from you tonight, Nia, and you just have such a powerful story. So, if you wouldn't mind, walk us through that. What was it like, being a college athlete? And you can take as long as you want for this, and we'll hang out and listen. But tell us, how did you come to Christ, and what's your journey been like? The title for this Facebook Live is what happens when God takes your sport away, and just so many of us are in this space right now where we have questions. Where's God in this? Why is this happening? And we want to hear from you, Nia.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly it's been an interesting journey, and it's not over yet. So I will kind of tell you, I was very fortunate, grew up in an awesome Christian home. My parents, I'm so thankful for the support and love and encouragement that they provided me with, starting off so young. So growing up in the church and having a great support system was very helpful. I had a tumor in my leg when I was 8 years old. So that's kind of where it started, went through some health issues with my leg, and the tumor came back. They took out most of my fibula bone, and I was never supposed to walk ever again. I was in a wheelchair for most of second grade, and it was by the grace of God that part of the nerve came back. They taught me how to walk, and then ended up playing basketball. I was 5'10" in fourth grade, so I always joke, when you're that tall, you really just give this girl a basketball. I mean, just get started, right? So I knew I had some natural talent being so tall, and I loved playing sports. I was definitely a tomboy and was always with my dad in the gym and football practices. So I grew up with that love for sports, and if you saw my fourth grade school picture, you will see that everything was basketball. The basketball turtleneck, basketball gold chain, it was legit. So everything I did was revolved around basketball, and I started doing travel basketball and AAU basketball. And my poor parents, now I'm a parent, so I appreciate so much all the sacrifices that they gave of literally going to places like Monroe, Louisiana. Never heard of it. And we were there for basketball for the national AAU championships in Oklahoma City and all these places. And they really gave up every weekend from May through August, going all over the U.S. and time and money and just, to give me that opportunity to play. So I played basketball year round. Our high school was pretty good, going to state championships and, state playoffs and everything like that. So we were pretty good in high school, and I knew I wanted to play in college. And at this point, I didn't really have any issues with my ankle. I had one ankle surgery in high school, but everything was pretty much okay. So I ended up accepting a full scholarship to Canisius College, and they had a great phys ed program. So that was one of the main reasons I went there. And going there, there's a lot of adjustments, right? If you're an athlete that's going to college, or an athlete that maybe just recently gone to college, the adjustments, there's a lot. So you're trying to figure out, who am I? What am I doing here with the sport? It's at a different level. Actually, the coach that recruited me and that offered me was forced to resign right before I came in. So then I had this new coach that he wasn't the coach that had recruited us. So that was an adjustment. And I came to Canisius, and our freshman year was actually awesome. We ended up winning the Max. And if you haven't heard of Canisius, because I didn't before, I accepted my scholarship, I was like, where is that? What conference is it in? But we play against Niagara and Marist, and we're in the MAAC conference. And we ended up winning, and we went on to play Duke in the first round of the NCAA tournament. You're going to be shocked. We did lose. You were surprised by that. No, but we had a great game, and it was such an awesome experience. I mean, for a mid-major school to go and play Duke, it was definitely one of those highlights in your athletic career that you're not going to forget. So that was my freshman year. Then we ended up going to Italy, and I was, playing there, and I just really had a lot of hope through that okay, this is, my sophomore year is going to be my chance kind of thing. And then my sophomore year, I started dealing with injuries. So the injuries started coming, and it's very frustrating. If you've ever had an injury, you know that it can be a very lonely place. The coaches, they're paid to focus on the X's and O's, and they have to focus on getting the team where it needs to go. Your teammates who aren't injured, they also have to focus on bringing their best every time to practice and getting themselves better. So when you're injured, you kind of feel set apart and set aside, and you really start then, if you're not getting better, that's when it starts to get harder and harder, I'd say mentally more than physically. Because you start just getting depressed, and why am I not getting better, and am I going to get back on the court, and why is this happening to me, and a lot of unknowns. So for me, everything kind of came to a head. I actually took a red shirt my junior year, and the plan was to do this partial ankle fusion. We took a shot. We were hopeful that this was going to be the kind of answer to the pain and the stuff I was dealing with at that time. So we took a red shirt. I took a red shirt. I did this procedure. We did the surgery. It was a very tough surgery. And what ended up happening is, at the end of my junior year, when I was ready to get the news, like, okay, everything's good, ready to get you back on the court, we had some complications, and we quickly discovered that was going to be the end of my career. And kind of getting that news that your basketball career is over. Not only can you not play basketball anymore, but actually we don't even think you're probably going to be able to run anymore. And just kind of my whole quality of life and like what that looked like down the road was devastating. And I will share that, sometimes when they say when it rains, it pours. At this same time when my basketball career was ending, I was also going through really difficult things in my personal life. I was in a toxic relationship that I didn't think I could get out of. I was dealing with injury, and I was in daily pain where I couldn't sleep. And at that time, the doctors would give you whatever you need, Oxycontin, whatever it was. And when you're dealing with crippling pain, not being able to sleep, then depression and thinking, everything started just to compound on each other. And I got to a dark place, and I'm also a recovering perfectionist, and I'm an achiever. And that's where I was starting to feel like, wait a minute. I did the equation, I worked hard. I put in the work. Why am I not getting the outcome? It's not making sense. And with that, knowing that this was so much out of my control, I really thought that I had no worth anymore. I was Nia, the basketball player, and without having basketball, who am I? Who was Nia? And I thought that, there was nothing left for me. And the only way out was to end my life. And so, when people say, for example, listen to speak your truth, or listen to that inner voice, let me just tell you, there is a voice that will try to convince you that is the enemy. And at that point in time, I was listening to that voice, and it was the wrong voice. I was a Christian at the time, but instead of trusting in what God says in His Word and trusting in who He made me to be and what He says, that I'm beloved, that He loves me, that He has a plan for my life, that I'm all these things that He says are truth in the Bible, I'm saying, no, that isn't the truth. I don't have worth in what I could see. And so when I tried to end my life, that was the summer before my senior year. It was only by the grace of God that I'm here today. I should not be here. I'm glad that I was unsuccessful in that attempt. And I remember the next morning waking up, and I remember praying, like, Lord, if there's something for my life. Like there must be something that I can't see that you can see. And I don't know how I'm going to get out of these things. You know, like I said, I was in that a very bad situation in a relationship. I don't know how I'm going to get out of that. I don't know what I'm going to do now without basketball. I don't know how I'm going to get through each day in this amount of pain. But now I know that you are with me, and I'm just going to trust. I'm going to take baby steps. And I think that when we're in a crisis, that's all he asks us to do, is just to trust him just one baby step at a time. And just kind of getting through that day. And that's what I started to do, is just try to get through that day. And actually the scripture that I turned to the next morning, the first thing I turned to is Matthew 10:39. And if you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give it up for me, you will find it. And that spoke to me so much. I just remember weeping and thinking, this was it. This was me clinging. Like I said, being that achiever, being that perfectionist, that I thought if I'm the all-star basketball player, you know, then I'll have the worth, then I'll have the value. If I get all perfect A's, you know, if I do whatever it is that you're doing, that's me clinging to that if I do all those things, then it's going to get me to where I want to be, or I'm going to be fulfilled. And what I found is, you know, when all those things could be stripped away. I mean, we're seeing it right now. All those things, the things, sports, or maybe it's your job, or maybe it's a relationship. Maybe home is not a safe place right now. There's a lot of variables there. And when we strip it all away, if there's not a greater purpose, it's a dark place to be in. And so that for me is when the gospel came alive, and when I saw that God's greatest gift of Jesus was to be set free, and that we could have hope and peace and trust. And actually on my way here, I was listening to WDCX, and the pastor was talking about temporary security as opposed to eternal security. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because I was putting my faith in so many things that were really temporary security. And I still sometimes do that, right? Whether it's your job or whatever you're doing. It could be school, whatever it is you're doing. You know, we really, we put a lot of faith in these things. But at the end of the day, especially now, my career ending with basketball, or my teaching career, having to resign from that, having now a small business where you don't know what's going to happen, I have to keep going back to that eternal security of, we don't know what's going to happen here. It's all temporary, but just trusting that the bigger picture, always keeping that as my ultimate goal. So by the grace of God, I came through that, and it took a long time. I will say it took a long time. It was a long road of healing. And just because I had that kind of epiphany there, and that situation that I went through, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't that, okay, the next day I woke up and was like, woo, let's go get him, Tiger, we got this. It was a slow process. And that's actually when FCA, the huddle at Canisius, when it was birthed, it was, who am I going to go and talk to? I need to talk to somebody. I can't be the only one going through something like that. I'm sure there's other athletes that are going through major things also. And I want to just maybe be a listening ear for somebody who feels hopeless and feels like they're at the end of their rope too, because I was there. And I don't want anyone else to feel like they are alone, that there's literally no one to talk to. I want to, make sure I can just make myself available. That led me to the FCA huddle at Canisius. I went on to teach. I was a phys ed teacher, the irony of all these injuries, but went on to be a teacher. I loved that. I loved teaching. But unfortunately, my ankles just slowly it became worse and worse and worse, where I had 7 ankle surgeries. I don't have cartilage left in my ankle. It's just really bone on bone. And it came to a point 2 years ago where here I am. I prayed for another miracle, like, Lord, I need you to show up, because my quality of life now stinks. I have a 1 and 3-year-old. They were 1 and 3 at the time. I've never gone on a walk with my children. Like, Lord, I need you to heal me. And it's funny when we're wrestling with God and we start saying crazy things like, Lord, if you heal me, I'm going to start a running ministry for you. Like, I hate running. You know, he's probably laughing, like, really? Are you? Okay. But at the time, like, that's what you just, okay, Lord, you know, because I thought I had it figured out what I needed him to do. And if he just did that, we'd be cool, be good. But again, thankfully, the Lord, he had different plans. And it got to the point where I had to feel a heart shift. Like, I had a heart shift in how I was looking at the situation. And I was basically back in a wheelchair 2 years ago. Could not walk, like I said, couldn't go to the grocery store. My husband would have to carry me up and down the steps. And it had to get to a point where I'm reading and listening to Paul, right, whose greatest ministry was in prison. And then he talks about the thorn in his flesh. And, you know, I have one of the verses, and he's talking about, actually I don't have that one written down, but it's in 2 Corinthians, I think. I mean, he's talking, like, I prayed 3 times for the Lord to remove this thorn in his flesh. And then he realized he just had this shift of perspective of, you know, actually I have to be thankful because he's really just given me the ability to just have joy, that my joy has to come from the Lord and not my circumstance. And so and that's where I got to. It was like, as soon as I said, okay, Lord, whether I'm going to be in a wheelchair or whether you're going to heal me, like, and I'm going to walk, either way, I have to have the same joy. And so I got to that place, I surrendered it to him, and then it was a crazy thing that happened. I discovered on some ankle Facebook group, somebody shared, I don't know if you can see it, it's called the ExoSim device, and it's a military device, and they opened it up to civilians, and it was only in the Hanger Clinic in Gig Harbor, Washington, excuse me, and so I found this thing, and I see this lady who couldn't walk. She was in a wheelchair, and then she had the ExoSim, and then she's like running in her driveway and like crying tears of joy. And I see this, I'm like, I got it. Oh my gosh, this is it. How do I get my hands on this? And it'll be 2 years in March. So I went out there, and again, by the grace of God, on the 3rd day of wearing this device, it's like a prosthetic if you still have a limb, but on the 3rd day of wearing it, I was sprinting on the trails behind the clinic, and I hadn't run in 10 years. So it's been life-changing. I forgot how to run. It looked not cute, okay? And I had lots of Kleenex, and my husband was there, my kids were there. And the fact that I could walk faster than my 3-year-old was amazing. And yeah, just went on my first walk. And I went from, like I said, to being in a wheelchair to I can walk 12, 13 miles a day without pain. So did I know that this was going to happen? I did not. And like I said, I prayed for 12 years for something and for help. And maybe in my case, I did have something that came, but maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. And I had to be okay either way. And in this situation, I will say that it's still surreal looking back on my life. And, you know, it's been a decade ago, tried to end my life. Didn't think there was any purpose, any plan. Do you know the ironic thing is I looked up the meaning of my name, Nia, and it means purpose. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, God knew. God knows. God knows what the purpose is for each and every one of you. And we won't always get those immediate answers. Right now, seasons ended, seasons not starting. People who are seniors and have worked 4 years to get to this place, Olympic athletes who have trained for 4 years, coaches who maybe you needed this season in order to keep your job. I mean, there are just so many facets of this. And if we can walk away with anything tonight, it's just the encouragement that having our trust and clinging on to the gospel, the message of the good news, that can just take root in your life. And if we allow that to take root in our life, I guarantee you that it's not going to be easy, because it won't, but I guarantee that you will have a peace and a hope and a freedom that is really indescribable. And I was not able to find it with anything else. It brought me to places like looking at what I've been able to experience, the joy. I never thought I would be able to be married or have children, or I had an opportunity to go to Cambodia and work with victims of sex trafficking. And just seeing that in the way that God has opened my eyes and the opportunity, and now fast forward, being a part of FCA, I will admit I was very bitter for a while when I would think about sports. I remember telling my husband, like, I would drive by the Kessler Center. This was a couple years after I had graduated. And every time I would drive by the Kessler Center, I would get sick to my stomach. And I would think, why? Like, I don't want to have these feelings, Lord, like, help me. I want to be able to go to Canisius games and be happy and be excited. And my husband has been so amazing and supportive of helping me to focus on the blessings, you know, the good things that have come out of it. Sports were not bad. The idol that I made, basketball at times, that was not healthy. And I think that, you know, the title of this, you know, did God take it away? He certainly absolutely allows things to happen. And I just have to say, thank you, Lord. If you allowed basketball to be taken from me, I'm sure it was for my good, for my benefit. Maybe I would have never gotten out of that really toxic relationship that I needed to get out of. Maybe he helped prevent me from other things happening. I don't know. Will we get those answers? Maybe one day, maybe not. But I always have to keep going back to he wants the best for us. He has plans to prosper us. That doesn't mean give us all the money or that we're free from grief and pain. But he wants something that's so rewarding for our life. And that's certainly true that he has grown my faith through this. He has grown my enjoyment of life. And now in this situation, you know, even if we lose everything, I just have to keep going back to, okay, Lord, like, I'm just gonna take those baby steps again. So I had a couple things just written down that I thought I just wanted to share with you. And then I hope we have time for Q&A because, like I said, I put it on my Facebook. I want it to be a time for people to throw out questions. We want to hear from you because this is one person's story. This was my story. It's certainly not the ending of my story, and you all have maybe a new beginning here to your story, and it's not your ending. So we really want to hear from you. But I wrote this down. This was helpful for me this year. I was going through a tough season in my life. That's the other thing. I told our athletes at UB, actually Monday we were talking about this, and I said, hey guys, I wish I could say that this is going to be the last difficult thing you're going to go through, but it's not. You're going to go through a lot more. But what it is doing, it's testing your faith, and it's this verse, for example, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And as an athlete, we know how to persevere. We are disciplined. We know how to sacrifice a lot. That's just the way that we're wired. So this is just another challenge, and that we're going to overcome it. And the Lord is on our team, so that's good news. And then Romans 5:3-4, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they are good for us. They help us to learn to be patient. I need help still every day with patience. And patience develops strength of character in us and helps us to trust God more each time we use it, until finally our hope and faith are strong and steady. And that's the outcome that we want to have, is just this steady faith that when the storms come, you know, our sails are just blowing all over, but we're just going to weather that storm. This was actually the quote that was super helpful, and I started keeping a journal. I had to write it like every day until it sunk in. Grieve what isn't, accept what is, and have faith that God has a great plan for your future. And I had to keep going back to that. Grieve what isn't. We got to grieve it. What's going on right now, it totally stinks. I'm not going to be, the first person to be like, oh, yep, just trust God, everything's going to be great. No, it really stinks. And we got to grieve that and allow yourself to grieve that. And some people might say, well, it's just sports. I mean, there's other serious things going on there. Yeah, there are a lot of serious things, but it's still painful, right? If you're a baseball player and you can't start your season, you're really looking forward to that. That still hurts. That's disappointing. And it's okay to say that it's disappointing and it hurts. Accept what is right now, right? We have things that are out of our control. And have faith that God has a great plan for your future. Not sure what that looks like, and but I'm just certain that here at FCA, if we can support our coaches and athletes that are doing a great ministry. Coaches, maybe you're home right now. I will say, speaking from experience, this is the time that your players need you more than ever. Home might not be a happy place for some kids. It might be a very, very toxic place. And they need an encouraging coach. I'm sure right now I want you to think about, I'm sure you remember coaches who were so positive and had such a great impact on your life. Also, you remember coaches who were negative and had a negative impact on your life. The legacy that a negative coach can have can be detrimental. The legacy that a positive coach can have can be maybe even eternal, right? I talked about the temporary security and internal security. You could be helping a young person to have eternal security. I can't think of much of a greater work than that. Athletes, if you're a believer and you have a strong faith, even a little faith, because you just need a mustard seed, then I want to encourage you that think about teammates that you have that really need you. And this is your time to step up. Be a teammate and a friend. Check in on your teammates. Check in on other people that you know. Maybe they're not on your team. Check in on your coach too. Maybe your coach isn't a believer and you just want to encourage them. So this is such a great opportunity to share. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where our faith really gets put to the test and that we can really offer hope. So that's what I wanted to say for coaches and players, is that I wish I had the answers. I don't. I just know from my own experience that when something gets taken away, I have seen something better waiting for us. He's going to take us out of the ashes. He's taken me out of the ashes, and he's made something beautiful out of a completely broken life.
Wow, so good. Amen. Thank you for sharing, Nia. This is so